this so that we have it. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right on in. So I am Tamara Easter, and I am a member of the Data Used for School Improvement team. And we're having these little love of data sessions this month, obviously in the theme of February, and February being this love month. But just to have these little quick sessions that kind of, I always say, like, whet your appetite and introduce you into different things that we have going on data-wise in our district. And so it's going to be short and sweet. And so if there are more questions or other things that you want to like dig into, we can set up sessions afterwards or meetings afterwards where we can like dig into your individual data to kind of give you more guidance on how to use the portal to better support your instructional decision-making and student outcomes. On the call with us today is Ryan and Lauren. They are two other members of our team. And I don't think anybody else has jumped in with us. Ryan and Lauren. And we also have Claudia Allen. She's a member of our team. Kelly is our director. And then Mary is our map coordinator. So we're a small team, but we have a big task that we carry the weight of data and how to use that. So we are the team that interfaces with schools. So at any point in time, our emails are here if you have questions or if you need better support on anything related to data, common assessments, continuous improvement, email any of us and we'll get back to you. So you have that there as reference. We already know who you are and where you're from, so we can kind of skip this, but we are very glad that you are here with us this morning. So by the end of our little short time together today, what we want to do is make sure that you kind of have an understanding of the Navigator portal. We have some key terms that we're going to give you just to keep a reference sheet so that you have of key terms that are used in the portal. We're going to identify, I want to say 6 key reports that you can use to better inform your academic and social emotional decision-making for students, and then understanding how data analysis and discussion can improve our student outcomes. So these are big, chunky learning targets for our little short time today, and we're probably just going to skim the surface of most of them, but know that we are always available to come in and dig deeper with you if needed. So what is the portal? Just really quickly, the portal is something that is special to CMS. It is not anything you can go to another district and say, oh, well, where's your Navigator portal? It is an in-house data warehouse. And so we have our team of programmers who sit and make reports, who code all these things out and provide us with the information that we need on different levels to make better decisions. The nice thing about it being in-house is that we customize it to our needs. So as you are in the portal, we always tell teachers this because, well, teachers, counselors, whoever's using it, sometimes when you are using it from your lens, the programmers don't know what to kind of put in the report. So they put everything in the report or they leave stuff out. So if you are in a report or if you're doing something in your school at Randolph and you are like, oh, it'd be nice if we had this report that did this, shoot us an email because we are able to kind of customize these things for our needs. So as you're in, or if you're seeing something that can just be tweaked to be better used from the teacher perspective, we always want that feedback. So it's just our own in-house data warehouse, basically. And the nice thing about it is when I'm looking for student information, I now have one place to go to versus going to several different places. You access the portal in many different ways. So you can always access the portal through the intranet. But what we like to kind of always announce, because most people don't know it's there, is that on your desktop, there's a little icon that says Navigator. And if you click it, it takes you to the Navigator portal. Now, sometimes, depending on where I'm at, if I'm in Chrome, it won't work, or if I'm in Explorer, it won't work. So if you click on it and it says access denied or something like that, you probably just want to go to a different browser because sometimes it gets a little finicky. But that compass will take you straight to your portal. If it does not, for whatever reason, you can always go through the intranet and go through the My Portals link on the intranet. Okay. Data on the portal, it is an abundance of data that lives in the Navigator portal. So we're going to have basic demographic information. We're going to have academic information. We're going to have course schedules. We're going to have past grades. We're going to have assessment data. We're going to have data related to attendance and enrollment. How many schools has a student gone to? How many days did they attend that school? How many days have they attended my current school? There's going to be incident information. There's going to be SEL information. There's going to be an abundance of information at the portal. And so it's very key to make sure that you know what you're looking for before you just jump in there, because it's a lot. And then to the key terms. In the handout, the digital handout folder, there is this document called the key data terms, 10 key data terms. And this is just going to go over what are some commonly used acronyms and phrases in the portal, so that if you're not familiar with it, like if I see MCV, and that one always catches somebody, I know that it's McKinney-Vento. Like I don't have to worry about it because I have this little cheat sheet here to kind of help me say, oh, MCV means McKinney-Vento. This is students that are deemed homeless, or what have you, right? And so this is just a key terms document. We always tell people, especially if you're new to the portal and new to looking at data, to print this out and kind of have it nearby or save it to your documents so that you know what to look for, or to know how to find the information when you need it and you're in the report. And so some of them are just age-old things, EOG, but now some of them may be new, because now we have changed our rating for scores from 1s and 2s to NP. And so if I saw NP, like what does that mean? It just means not proficient. So that is explained here. And we update this as things begin to change. So you have this document in your folder. So let's get into these reports. So I'm going to quickly go through these reports because this is supposed to be a quick session. But know that, like I said before, always stop me, ask questions. We're a small group here, so please don't hesitate to come off mute and say, hey, wait a minute. There are several reports when you go under your teacher login, and some of them are outdated, I'm not even gonna lie, and probably should be just removed. Some of them have not been updated because we just don't have the data because we didn't test last year, right? So we're gonna go through the ones that have the most current data that you can use right now to better support your understanding of students, where they are and where you probably wanna go forward with them. So we're gonna look quickly at the school profile. It's just a really broad overview of your school. And then we're gonna go into your teacher homepage, which is the student course enrollment overview. We're gonna look at a student profile. There is a Lexile level roster. And then there are elementary risk indicators as well as early warning indicators. So we're gonna go through these different reports. And lastly, our EVAS projections. So we have quite a bit to get through. At any point in time, please, please, please stop and ask questions. So in your folder, digital folder, there is a reports guide. Every single report that we are going to go over today is listed on this report guide. So if you have questions later on, you can always go back to this guide. We like to include these guides normally with all of our trainings because it's nice to be able to come back and say, what was that report with the triangles with this? Well, if I come here, there'll be a picture of the report, how to get to the report, who the report is for, description, and then just some guiding questions that begin to get you thinking about how to use this data going forward. So you will have this here, always go back to it. Anytime we update it, we will put an updated version out. So just know that this is just a guide, a reference point that you can use going forward. So school profile overview. This is a report that tells us basically information about our school. So if I wanted to know more about who's at my school teacher-wise, in terms of teachers who have how many teachers are highly qualified, how many teachers have advanced degrees, how many teachers do we have that fall into different year buckets, then I can come to this report. If I want to know about who was at my school in terms of student demographic and student breakdown, I can come to this report. If I want to know overall how my school has been trending over time in tested areas, I can come to this report. It really just gives me an overview of what is happening at my school, right? And it's going to break it down into, we chunk it into some big chunks. Enrollment data, so who is enrolled at your school, right? So you're going to be able to see them by special populations, and you're also going to be able to see them by racial groups. And then you'll be able to see teacher data. So how many of my teachers at the school have advanced degrees versus how many are highly qualified versus how many fall into these different experience groups, right? Always helpful to know, like, who do I need to go to? What's happening at my school? And is it because we have maybe new, more new teachers or what have you? So this is just here, really high level overview. If we look, continue into that report, you will see school performance grades and EVOS growth trends over time. So I'm able to see how has my school trended in terms of one, EVOS, how have they been growing students? And then when I combine those two things together, my school performance grade, right? So remember, our school performance grade is 80% proficiency and 20% growth. So that's where we get that letter from. We will see this for multiple years, unless obviously, like last year, we don't have it for the previous year. So, but you will see it for multiple years, and you'll be able to see whether or not if it's green or orangey color, meaning that they maintain or they actually went up from the previous year, are still maintaining that green exceeded area. So the colors will kind of indicate movement. And then if you are at a high school, which you're not, but you get your cohort graduation rate. And so if I'm looking at a different high school, I can come here and I can see how well is a school graduating students. And if we see big drops like this -4.2, just for your information, if we're seeing this happen, that's probably because there was a business rule change at the state level and how they begin to calculate graduation rates, right? Because that's a big drop. You're like, good gosh, oh my gosh, they dropped. They started to calculate graduation rates a little differently this year. And so always when we see this, it makes us ask the question, what happened? Right? What happened to make this 1.9? What happened to make this -4.2? And if we went up, what happened? What did we do differently that made our graduation rate go up? So this is kind of how we begin to look at the data. We begin to dig in and ask the questions of what happened and why did it happen? And then you're going to get just trends of your EOG and ELC composite. And then underneath that, you'll have it broke down for each subject area. So you're able to see just like over time, how has my school done? This here being overall with EOGs or EOCs, right? And so here the arrows will red down means that we dropped, obviously green up would mean that we made some improvement, right? And then if you are at a high school, other high school measures would be, we have our ACT data, how many students are scoring at that 17 or above. We have work keys data, how many students are taking the work keys exam and are scoring at a silver or above. And then we have math course rigor, which is how many students have taken and passed math, how many seniors have taken and passed math 3. So we have all of these different measures. These are really high school measures, but just for your information, you never know where you might end up or land. You have these three assessments here. And then we're not going to dig in, but there is just some questions, right? So when you're looking at this, because it is so high level, you want to be thinking about trends and patterns, right? So as I'm looking at my school EOC data or their EVOS and school performance grades, am I noticing any trends or patterns? What questions does it bring up, right? And then be thinking about, like, why is it important for me to be thinking about the entire school-wide data versus just looking at my own individual data, right? Or how does my individual data play a part in the school-wide data? So that is the school profile overview. Very broad, and we're going to get a little bit more narrow. The next report is the student course enrollment overview. So this is actually what should open up when you open your portal. So this should be your homepage. And when you get to this report, you will see like basically a couple of rows. One, you will see here at the top, a basic combination of all the students who are assigned to you through PowerSchool. So one thing about the portal is that some of the data is pulled from PowerSchool on a nightly basis. So anything that is updated in PowerSchool that night will show up in portal the next day, right? And so this is being pulled from PowerSchool, and we're looking at like your total course enrollment, and then underneath it, it's going to break down all of your different periods or courses, and then how many kids are enrolled in those. This report was actually created, when I say we can customize, this report was actually created by a teacher that said, hey, teachers need something to come to look at where they see all of their students in a very organized manner. So we had a course enrollment report, which had kind of just dumped all the kids in there, and it was just this huge report. This here makes it a little bit more manageable, and you're able to see your kids collectively at the top, but also by periods underneath. So at the top, when you have this number enrolled, you're also going to get these different categories, right? So who in my class, or who that's currently assigned to me, is a current L student, who's exited the L program, who is a possible EC student or is an EC student, who has 5 or more daily absences, who's chronically absent, and then looking at some disciplines data, who has one or more ISS or one or more OSS. So this was actually pulled from this year. So obviously we know that discipline data is kind of like non-existent right now for most students. But we do have like chronically absent students, so students who this year would have really not been logging on and being accounted present for in class. Chronically absent is different from 5+ total daily absences. Chronically absent is when a student has missed 10% or more of the days that they were totally enrolled, right? And so chronically absent is different from just 5+ total daily absence. These kids right here are like, okay, we need to be, they probably should be on our radar, but these kids are not. These right now are not hyperlinked. We are working on getting them hyperlinked, so when you click on them, you actually can see those kids, but this kind of just makes you aware. In addition, for my current L students and my current students with disabilities, I need to make sure that I know who those students are and that I am prepared, that I am meeting their needs of their plans. And so here, if I know that I have 19 current L students and I only have 10 L plans, then I need to figure out whose plan I don't have, right? Or I need to figure out whose IEP I don't have, because I need to make sure that I am meeting the needs of what has been placed in that IEP. So this is kind of just I almost call it checks and balances sometimes. It makes me realize like, oh, wait a minute, have I been doing what I need to do for XY student? Underneath there, it's going to just break it down into class, period, or course, right? It's going to tell you out of those 131, 20 are in this biology class. I think he's coming up. One of them is a current L student, 4 of them have been exited from the L program, and 5 are EC. So I'm able to see who is in just that one course. And then I'm able to see, based on PowerSchool and how grades are entered, how many students have what grade in that course and how many have no grades. Like how many haven't entered a grade for the student. So you're able to come over and just get a quick glimpse of, how are my students falling in these different categories? This 20 here is hyperlinked. And so if I click on that 20, it takes me to that actual roster of students. And now I have that class. I can really switch them up here if I want to. I'm looking for all students, and I can see all those students, all 20 of those students right here. It's going to give me that information. Now this report is going to go on forever. It's got many, 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 many columns. So it's going to also drop in every single data point that the student may have that they received, either if they were in state or in CMS, right? So any EOG score, any MAP score, if they took dibbles, it's still going to be in there. It's all going to be there for you to kind of like dig into. And it kind of helps us like look at, if I'm concerned about a student, I can dig in here. I can begin the process here and looking at their data and seeing, is it a trend? Like, have they always been low performing in ELA? Have they always been a struggling reader? I can come here and kind of begin to do that investigation. Same thing here, we always say trends and patterns. And And then not coming to this report every single day, but how can you see yourself using this report throughout the year? Or if I'm like concerned about a course or a specific class where I come here, I always tell teachers to use this report to make sure that you've got the plans that you need, IEPs or L plans that you need for certain students that have been identified, just to make sure that we're doing the right thing for kids and that we're meeting regulations. In this report, I'm going to go back. In this report, when you are here, you'll have the student, I'm pointing, I do that all the time, like you can see me. You'll have the student ID number, and you'll have the student first and last name. If there is a student that I'm concerned about, I click on their ID number, and it takes me to their student profile. And the nice thing about the student profile, it is like the walking cume folder, right? So when I was in the school many years ago, when I wanted to know more about it, we had to go to this little closet and open up these file cabinets, and you couldn't take the folder out of the registrar's office, or you were just going to be hunted down like, I don't know. So now you might not get every single bit of information that is in that cume folder, but you're going to get close to it. Now we have the student profile. And so if I'm thinking about a student, and I would never suggest that, especially for a high school person who has maybe 131 students like we just saw assigned to them, going through all 131 profiles. But if I have students who I am concerned about, who are like top of mind, like, oh man, I need to know more about him or her, and I just want to do some digging just from a data perspective, right? Because I'm going to do this in combination with conversation, but I want to know a little bit more, I can come to the student profile. And so you're going to get demographic information, parent contact information, previous schools attended, right? So has the student been transient? Have they been pretty stable at the same schools? Current and prior year attendance and incident information, current and prior year course schedules and grades, assessment results, and then you're going to get their risk indicators. All right, so elementary risk indicators for elementary school, or early warning indicator for middle school and high school. So at the top of this, we're always going to have just the basic demographic information. And then right below that, we're going to get their enrollment, attendance, and suspension information. So if I come here, it's going to list any school that they've ever attended in CMS. Some students lists are going to be longer than others. But typically you will see that they follow their feeder pattern. But if I'm seeing a whole lot of jumping around, right? So like this student went so far, went to Smithfield and they went to Quail, but at some point in time they left Quail and went to Kennedy. If I'm seeing a lot, maybe they went to 2 or 3 elementary schools, they went to 2 middle schools, and then they went to 2 different high schools. It kind of lets me know there may be some gaps there, right? Because they are very transient. And right now, what we're working on in our district is this thing of equity across schools. And we know that not to be true. And that's why it's a focus of ours. And so we know that a kid who went from Quail to Kennedy may not be getting the same experiences. And so there may be some gaps there and some learning. We don't know, but that's just something for us to keep in mind as we're thinking about what may possibly be not an issue, but a road bump for the student and why we are digging into him or her. Beneath that, I'm sorry, even with that, if I go over to the, in this report, you're gonna see ISS and OSS. So if the student has ever been suspended or sent to ISS, the number will populate here, and then you can click on any of those things to get the actual information behind the incidents. So all of that information is there for you. Beneath that, you have course enrollment. So if I ever want to kind of just dig into how are you doing in other classes, if I'm using my SEL time to kind of like build relationship with kids and do some check-ins, I can come here and say, hey, how are you doing in such and such class? Oh, I see you have a C in AP English. What can we do to better support you here? So, and it's just about knowing the whole student and not just knowing them just from one lens, but like building that relationship and being able to say, hey, I've seen that you're failing in such and such, such and such. How did you know that? Well, because I've got your profile. I know all, right? And so it's nice to let them know that I'm actually like invested in you holistically, like not just in my 8th grade class, my ELA class. So you have that. If I wanted to dig a little further, I could click here At the bottom where it says view schedule for prior years, I could click here and it's going to take me to all of their previous scores, grades, and courses. So you can click there and be able to see like, oh, let's talk about how you did in ELA when you were in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, because I have that, you have that information here. Beneath that, you've got your standardized testing information. So any MAP data, any EOG data, any EOC data, it's all going to be listed here. It's nice to come here to see if there are trends and patterns, or if they're like off years. So I noticed that in like 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, you were level 4, but then something happened in 7th grade and you dropped to a level 2, and then you kind of, so it's nice to be able to see it in one snapshot. Student performance. You also have their map data, and this will update at the close of map windows, and it gets rolled over. So you'll have all that information in one place. And then underneath that, you're going to have CMS early warning indicators, or elementary risk and early risk indicators. So K5 is ERI and 612 is EWI. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute. So I don't want to dig into it deeply, but you're going to get all of their indicators here. And then for my middle school and high school, you get predicted graduation probability. So you'll get that and what their risk level is. And we'll dig more into that in just a second. That is the student profile. We always say, know what you're looking for before you go into the profile, because you can be here, but be thinking about, when I'm looking at this, what is standing out to me? Why am I even here looking at this kid's profile? And then what is standing out to me? And what does this mean for how I move forward? So ERI and EWI. So briefly, ERI is the elementary risk indicator. And ERI will tell us what are some things that possibly could stop it and could cause a kid to fall behind academically, right? And so there are 4 categories that we have indicators in: attendance, behavior, coursework, and achievement. And if you can tell, not all of those indicators are for all grade levels. So depending on your grade level determines what indicators are applied to you, right? And so if I'm looking here, attendance all the way across the board, right? Behavior all the way across the board. But then there are some, obviously we can't do grade 3 EOG in math because they haven't taken it, right? So depending on what year you're in determines what kind of flags you have. The thing about the ERI is it's not really about, like, just because the student is EC doesn't mean they're high risk. It just makes us more aware, like, are we meeting their needs? Do we have the supports put in place to make sure that this student does not fall behind? Same with L, right? And so some of these things are just things that, you know, they are what they are. It does not necessarily, it's not self-fulfilling, like, oh, because they're EC, they're high risk. No, it just means that it makes us more aware. The more flags that a student has, the more at risk they are of falling behind. So we come and we look at our students and we see who has the most flags, what are those flags in, and what things can we put in place to possibly impact them having less flags, right? So if it's an attendance thing, how do we get the kids to come to school? If it's a behavior thing, how do we like change some things that we are doing to possibly lower our behavior incidents? It just depends on what the flag is. So your you can have anywhere from, like, what is it, 7 up to like 10 flags, depending on your grade level. So you always want to come and check to see which ones apply, which ones don't. If I'm a 5th grader and I have all 10 flags, then we probably need some interventions to be put in place, right? In my report, if I click on any of these numbers here, right, it's going to take me to the list of students, and then it's going to tell me to how many flags they have, and it's actually going to tell me which flags are applied to that student. ERI. EWI is much like ERI, except for there's a little bit more math to it. There's an algorithm that is being used. This is all research-based from our research team that did a lot of research on, like, what were some things that they were seeing common across the board that were predictors of students graduating on time. And they took those things and they put them into this nice algorithm, and it gives us a predicted graduation probability. So when you click on your EWI summary, when you get here, you're going to get the risk level, low, moderate, and high, and it gives us what score you have to fall to those groups. And then all grades, and then what grade level you want. This is one 7th grade teacher. The grade, which group did you want to look into? Low, moderate, or high? So you can click on one of those. When I click there, it's going to take me to the report. Oops, sorry. It looks very similar to the ERI report, right? And it's going to indicate, it's going to tell me which flags apply to which student. So for 612, the flags are a little different, right? Still have those same 4 big categories: attendance, behavior, coursework, and demographics. But there are some other things like credits are added in when we get to 9th grade. GPA is added in when we get to 9th grade. Calculated cumulative GPA for 6th through 8th grade. So those things are different for each grade level. You want to come here, and you also have a guide in your digital folder just to kind of come and say, as an 8th grade teacher, which flags apply to my students, and then how many of my students are sitting in the very high risk category. Once again, just because a student is EC or L student does not necessarily mean just because they're there that they are high risk. It is just to make us more aware. We already went through our probabilities, but 90 to 100 is low, 80 to 89 moderate, and then anyone falling 0 to 79 is high. And if they don't have enough data available, it's going to be missing. They're falling in the missing category and just not available because we just don't have enough data to make that risk calculation. And then when you come here, it will tell you, like I said, all of your students, but it will also tell you their graduation probability, but every quarter it is updated. So it's going to tell me, has there been a change in their probability from the prior quarter, right? So maybe we had some interventions we put in place for, even though these are low risk kids, but they were high. And we want to know that, did any of our high risk kids like have a shift this quarter in probability? We can come here and pull the report to see did the things that we put in place actually make some impact or not. That is the EWI. So on your student profile, the last box on your student profile will be either ERI or EWI, and that is this information. So yeah, I can look at my profile for it, or I can just come to the actual report where all of my students are placed together. Lexile level roster. This report updates after each map window, and basically just kind of tells us where the students in with the prior year EOG. We do not have that for this year, so that is actually blank. But on a normal basis, we would have what is their prior year EOG, and then when they take map, it's going to tell us they left off, for this example, at a 771. When they took map at the beginning of the year, they were at a 573. And that's in the pink. Middle of year will show up in blue. End of year will show up in orange, and then current year EOG will show up in this beige color. But we also have this here green, the stretch Lexile band, which kind of tells us where should the student actually be falling. All right, so now we're able to see, well, they were actually falling there when they left prior year, but they kind of had some summer slide. And so now we need to see what MOY brings to see if we're back where we're supposed to be. So this is our Lexile level roster, only available for K-8 because obviously we do not have MAP on the high school level. So you have your Lexile level roster. And that's pretty self-explanatory. And then lastly, you have your projections. So your EVOS projections, EOY roster, I don't title these, it's a weird title, but you have your EVOS projection, EOY roster, and you can come here. This is updated based upon the EVOS model of using past test scores to predict where students will fall, right? And so this year data is in there, and you can come here and basically see where students are projected to land state percentile wise and achievement level wise based on their testing history. So I want to come here and basically just be starting to think about who is following and cut it into thirds, who's falling in the 0 to 33rd percentile, 34 to 66, and 67 to 100. That gives me my middle, low, and high group, right? And what am I doing to make sure that we are actually pushing toward where they are projected to land or surpassing that? So you do have your EVOS projections that are in this. We always say these are not self-fulfilling prophecies. Just because it says they're going to be a 4 doesn't mean they're going to be a 4. Right? So what are we doing to make sure that we are pushing for the mark, basically? Other than that, those are the, I think, six key reports, maybe 5, that we're going to share today. We always get these questions. How is Portal different? One, it puts everything in one nice spot for you. It's a lot, but it puts it in one nice spot for you. It does pull from Power School, so you're going to see much of the same information. But the nice thing is that it is it's in one place. One thing just jumped in my mind that I didn't mention is your SEL data for students is listed on their student profile. So if you are looking for their SEL data, it is in their student profile currently. Should you visit the portal every day? If you want to, right? If that's your thing, that's your jam, yeah, but I would say probably not. I would be beginning of year always, because I want to know who's coming to my class, who's going to be sitting in those seats. Can I get a general idea of that? After some standardized assessments, like you said, the one time that I do go there to get my EOG scores, right? If I'm having a specific concern about a student and I want to know, is this a pattern? Is this a trend? Or is this an anomaly? Like, this is weird behavior. I might go here and dig in. And then student parent conferences. If I am doing an MTSS meeting and I need some historical data, I can always come to the portal, right? And there are a few other reports that we did not go over, but you already know, like your end of year testing results. But if there is something else that you need, we can always figure out how to get that for you. And at that point in time, I know that was really quick, but do you have any questions?
I don't think so. I think you covered everything in pretty good detail.
Good. Was there anything you were looking for today just to get out of this session?
I was really just kind of looking for a general overview. You know, I had kind of played around before, but there's always, you know, something that you miss when you're in there. So that was really helpful.
Yeah, no problems, no problems. Well, at this point in time, that was really all we had. These are meant to be short 30, 40 minute sessions, just to give you time back and not to take up your time all day. But Ms. Walker, if you need anything else, please do not hesitate. I didn't do that. Hesitate to call, to reach out, to email. Load back up. Here we go. So don't forget your sign in. And if you need any resources, the folder is there. And then our email address is ducey@cms ... So if anytime you can just email the group, or you can email one of us individually. We do also have a Google site. So the Google site also has tons and tons of instructional resources and professional development things on there. And there's also a Canvas site. So there's a Canvas site, and there's some which will tell you about our PD offerings, SchoolNet and things like that. So it's all there. We're just here to make sure that you all have what you need to do the job that we're destined to do. And we thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, thank